How's it going, everybody? Thanks for coming back to the channel. I am the Foxhead, and this is my absolute disaster of a shop right now. Space getting pretty tight. Pretty much have an Oktoberfest in here with all the German accessories. We got transmission sitting over here, exhaust sitting over here, and then just the random bits of junkyard finds to kind of keep this whole thing going. I just wanted to take the chance here after discussing with some of you guys on the Facebook forums. By the way, E46 owners and E46 owners clubs, you guys rock. Without resources like this, these projects probably wouldn't be possible for most people, because how the hell do you work on German cars? So yeah, anyways, after talking to a bunch of guys, I wanted to do a video just kind of detailing everything you're going to need to do this manual swap. I know I briefly glossed over the major parts in the last video. We're going to go a little more in depth because it's a little more involved than most people think. So right off the bat, obviously you're going to need a transmission that you're swapping, hence, you know, the whole manual swap part. Then you're going to need to get the manual drive lines. As you can see, there is definitely a length difference between the manual driveline on the right and the automatic driveline on the left, basically because the transmissions are different lengths. One thing to note, you know, I pulled this guy off of the 325. This is a 330, and you can see the output shafts are completely different. Fortunately, it looks like this second shaft here is the same length. It's these shorter shafts here that are different, so I can probably just swap the two over and call it good, which is awesome because I'm pretty sure this center support bearing is about brand new. The second thing you're going to need is the mounts. They look fairly similar, but they are slightly different. Just different bolt locations, and then the manual one here comes with an extra exhaust bracket. This is obviously the one off the automatic with the sheared transmission mounts. So that is going bye-bye. So then the other thing is the clutch and flywheel. I went ahead, and it's just a good idea to replace these parts unless they look absolutely new. You can see there's quite a thickness difference. I mean, that one's about wasted, whereas that one's obviously brand new. Comes with a pressure plate. While you're in there, you're going to want a new throwout bearing. And then, of course, pilot bearing, and then you're going to need an alignment tool. It's pretty standard clutch stuff. Just some gaskets. You're going to need two for the exhaust here, and then obviously the transmission mounts were just absolutely toast. So we're going to replace those, and then just while you're in there, it's a good idea on these higher mileage cars just to do your engine mounts here. The other thing too, this is completely optional, but I've just had horrible luck with rear main seals in German cars, so I went ahead and got the kit to redo the rear main seal while we're in there. And then, man, so I know I'm going to hear about it in the comments, but these BMW cars, they have what's called a dual mass flywheel, and basically what it is you can see that there's play in it, and this is supposed to absorb vibration or whatever. A lot of guys will just swap this out for a single mass. They say you can machine these. I was getting conflicting statements online. One thing I did find is these are designed to be used twice throughout the so you can basically do a clutch change on this thing and supposedly be okay. It's roughly $200-300 to buy a new one. I'm gonna risk it and throw this one back in. If it craps out on me, then you know it's my fault, and I will take it apart and spend the $200-300. But for right now, the other kind of thing you want to check as far as wear goes, I made a mark here between that line and that line. You're supposed to get no more than 1.5 when you turn this, and you can see we're right at 1. So this thing probably has some life in it. I mean, there's no crazy scoring on the surfaces. So like I said, we're gonna risk it, but you know, completely up to you if you want to spend the money. You know, it's good to just replace it. The more performance option, like I said, is just go with the single mass flywheel. And anyways, we're gonna leave it at that. Now we're going to get into the more complicated parts. So from all my research, I have found that there are two styles of clutch pedals. And you can kind of see here how there's a hole there and a hole there. Those are supposed to hold sensors. So that's the first style. It's basically, it's got two sensors. This clutch goes back and forth between the two. I believe it's just magnetic. This is going to tell your computer that the clutch is in. It's also going to tell the EWS, your immobilizer, that you're not stealing the car. So without those sensors, I believe your car just won't start. I managed to, I guess, not grab those two sensors out of my donor car, and the hardware that holds it in, I'm missing that too. So if anyone of you guys out there has got that, feel free to message me. I'll totally take that off your hands. I may be able to get away with using the brake sensor. That is the second style, is just a single sensor in there with a 4-wire. Basically, you're going to have power ground. One wire is going to go to your EWS immobilizer. The other wire is going to go to the DME computer. So just to do that and make it easy, I went to the junkyard and just clipped some connectors out, and then what you can do is you can pull these pins out. When we go to do it, I'll show you how to do it more in depth, and that'll just make it easy. And then you just make solder connections, and that's that. The other thing, man, I had a hard time finding this until I realized it's just a generic two-prong, but on the manual transmission, there's only one connector here. This is your reverse light switch. So basically trips this guy there, tells the car it's in reverse, and your reverse lights will work. I didn't grab the harness, but like I said, it's just a generic two-prong, and it just connects in. I mean, I just pulled this off of like a 525. It wasn't even a 3 series. I just yanked it out of the junkyard, and it totally fits. So easy there. I mean, I got on ECS tuning, and they wanted like $150 for that one stupid fucking harness. So congratulations. Then the other thing here is there is a difference in flywheel hardware. The one on the left here is for the manual, and this is for the automatic, and that's because that dual mass flywheel is just so much thicker. So you definitely want to replace those. It's just a good idea. A lot of guys get away with just reusing them. I mean, they're steel. I know on a lot of the newer stuff, they like to use aluminum hardware that is torque to yield. Basically, it stretches the bolt out one-time use, and then you're supposed to replace it. But it was cheap enough. We're just going to go ahead and replace that. And then the last thing, just stupid minor detail, but you know, this is your sort of panel that goes up underneath the steering wheel, and you can just barely see there's a little outline here, and that is the cutout for your clutch pedal. So you can either just grab the one off your donor car, or you can just take the one off your automatic and just take a Dremel or something and just kind of cut that out. One other thing to note, you don't necessarily need this whole assembly. Really the only difference is this bracket is literally the same in the automatic. It's just got the mounting hardware to mount your clutch pedal, and then the brake pedal, you can see right here, it kicks over a little bit, and that is clearance to the pedal, whereas in the automatic it just comes straight down. Okay, and then one last little detail with the gas pedal. This is, again, purely optional, but you know, if you're really going for that factory vibe, the automatic pedal has a step down. You can see it stops right there, and then it's got one more little push there, and that's to kick the automatic transmission down and go vroom vroom. The manual is just all the way down. There's not that little deal there. Now, I didn't know this when I was pulling from the donor, and I completely destroyed that pedal getting it out. So maybe I'll show you guys how to take this out and preserve it. And then I just want to note here, there's a lot of conversation with gear ratios, where the automatics versus the manual transmissions just have different gear ratios. So a lot of guys will do the swap and leave their automatic differential sitting in there, and the cars just rev out on the freeway at like 4,000 RPM, and you're only doing 70 miles an hour. I've also had people tell me that you're really not even going to notice it. So this is more just a backup. It came free with the swap, so I mean, I just wasn't going to say no. And he guy told me it's got an LSD in it, but yeah, that's probably bullshit. But yeah, you know, if I go driving down the freeway, it's pretty easy to swap this differential, and it'll give me some more content for you guys. And oh, and then here's my pedal that I destroyed to get out. I'll just undo those 4 little screws there and pop it onto the other one. Then all my pedals will match and be super fancy with the kind of polished aluminum look. Oh, and then the last thing, you're going to need your manual shift knob and your manual shift boot. This is obviously automatic. Pretty easy to tell what the differences are there. And oh, and then just make sure for your clutch assembly. So here's the actual master cylinder. And then you can see it goes down. This is where it crosses through the firewall, and then it picks up this on the transmission side. This side goes into your slave cylinder, and then this would clip in to there. So make sure you grab that hose too when you're tearing apart that donor car. Okay, then another thing to consider is your shift linkage. There is a whole host of bushings and pins and bullshit. They're all consumable parts. They do wear out over time, and it's really gonna affect how sloppy that shifter is. So it's kind of user preference. If you like a nice tight shift, or if you even give a shit, you can replace these parts right now, or do what I'm going to do and just run it, see how it feels. I believe all these components are serviceable with the transmission in the vehicle, so it's not like it's going to have to come back out to do this. It's pretty simple. Just take your center console apart and have plenty of access to change that out. Another thing to inspect here is your guibo. It's this big hunk of rubber here. It's basically a vibrational damper or something like that, and you can see this one's in pretty good shape. Just to show you a little comparison, the one on my automatic here is just trashed. I mean, it's all cracked out and definitely's got some miles on it. So if this is how it looked, I'd replace it, but like I said, that one is just fine. So just something to be aware of. Oh, and I almost forgot. So another big difference between the manuals and automatics is the automatics have this old school mechanical fan, and the manual transmissions, I guess, have an electric fan. And then, which means that underneath here is also different. So you can see this guy here's your transmission puller for your automatic. It's got all the lines going to it. If you remember the video, that's the line we pulled and that fluid drained out. So what a lot of guys will do is just disconnect this line and leave it as is. You can see I've got a tiny little leak going on where this guy plugs in. So there's actually a whole other plastic piece for the manual transmission that basically deletes this thing. However, it does involve draining all the coolant, and that's kind of a whole other thing. So eventually I'll do it. I'm just gonna run it, pull these lines out and drain this guy out, and just run it as is, just to make sure the transmission's all good. And then we'll probably do a whole other series on the cooling system of these things. Now, I have no idea why this is leaking. All these parts are supposedly brand new. So it's probably just an O-ring. I mean, to tell you the truth, I am not impressed with the BMW cooling systems, which anyone that has ever owned these cars knows it's just a disaster waiting to happen. So I'm glad all these parts are replaced, but I have no idea why that's still leaking. So hopefully I can just delete that out of there, and that'll solve kind of 2 problems at once. But definitely something to be aware of when you're doing this swap. All right, I know I keep saying last thing, but god damn it, I mean it this time. This is pretty much the last step. Once you got that thing in there and everything's driving fine, you're gonna have to get into the computer and tell it that you just put a manual transmission in, because it is gonna flip it shit and throw you all kinds of warning lights, because it's not gonna be able to detect the automatic transmission anymore. So this is the cable I use for BMWs for most of my basic stuff. It's you know, KD CAN, come on, focus. KD CAN USB interface. INPA is the software that the BMW uses. I believe this is factory. It's what they literally use at the BMW factory to read the computer and code the computer and do all that fun stuff. So this is going to tell your computer that it is a manual transmission. This is going to get rid of all your warning lights. And of course, you're going to need a laptop. If you're going to own these cars, I mean, I picked this up for like $200. This cable is like $25. I actually use this for my Audi and my BMW. This is the Eurodyne cable for the Audi. This was very expensive, but I put stage 2 tune on that thing, and it's newer. It's like a 2009, so it's completely different animal. Maybe someday we'll get into that. While we're here, just another optional BMW cables. This guy here, this comes with these pigtails. This will allow you to physically plug in to the actual computer. I believe you have to go in and like short a pin, and then you're going to plug this in, and it's going to read the contents of your whole brain in that BMW, and then you can save it and then use this to tune the vehicle, code out like the EWS, all kinds of fun stuff. So maybe we'll make a video on that once we get this thing running. But yeah, if you want to get rid of the warning lights or mess around with the factory settings, that's what you're going to need to do it. So yeah, anyways, I hope that kind of clarifies everything you're going to need to do the swap, so you just kind of have an idea before you even get started of what you're going to need. I know I've been to the junkyard a couple times, definitely forgot some parts on that donor car, and second time around, I'm grabbing those parts. But you know, that's why this channel exists, is just to help everyone out. God knows I've learned enough off of YouTube and through the Facebook forums and all you guys. So if you got any questions, need clarification, just want to yell at me about that M badge, go ahead and comment down below and help each other out, man. That's why we're all here, and that's what makes these cars fun, is just learning how to wrench. God knows I can't afford to pay someone to do this shit. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned. We're gonna get this transmission in here and go for some skids. Peace.